So we're skipping a section. We're going into section 7.3, and that's solving systems with elimination. And before I get into it, what you have to understand first is there's a bunch of ways of solving systems, okay? Teachers typically show the graphing method first because that's a nice visual. It's where the lines intersect. But it's not always efficient. It can take time to set up a coordinate plane to graph the lines. If the numbers are really big, it gets unwieldy. So there are other methods. I never use graphing unless I have to. I use elimination or a third method called substitution, which we'll get to later. To do this elimination, though, you have to understand the concept of an opposite pair. Okay, so I'm going to talk about an opposite pair of variables. For example, if I had 6x, the opposite pair would be negative 6x, because then when you add these together, they cancel out. They go away completely. You know, if I had like negative 2y, the opposite would be positive 2y, right? Okay, let me clean that up a little bit. So an opposite pair of variables is just, it could be x or y. If I had, 3x, the opposite pair would be negative 3x. And when I say opposite, it means when you add them together, they will cancel out completely. You'll get 0. 0x, which is just 0. Okay, these are all opposite pairs. So instead of graphing, graphing will still work, don't get me wrong. There's this other technique called elimination. And here, we're going to walk through this nice and slowly. 3x, whoops, that should say minus 2y equals 8. That's one equation. And then another equation is x plus y equals 1. Now we could solve those both for y and graph them both and do it that way. But we're going to do elimination today. So what I want to do is I want to create an opposite pair of x's or an opposite pair of y's. Now take a look at this. You see how this is 3x? We would want this to be negative 3x, and that would be an opposite pair. Or you see how this is 2y? Negative 2y? We would want this to be positive 2y. So let's do that. Let's change this to a positive 2y. So I'm going to multiply this second equation by 2. Okay? Which will give me what? 2x. Remember, you have to multiply each thing by the 2. Because as long as you do that, you're keeping the equation balanced. Everything got multiplied by 2. Now the first equation, nothing happened at all. But you see how, notice how I now have this opposite pair. Once we create this opposite pair of variables, and again, it could have been x or y, it doesn't matter. We then put a line underneath and we add the two equations together. 3x plus 2x is 5x. Negative 2y and 2y cancels out. 8 plus, so they're eliminated. You see the y's are eliminated. Now we have an equation that just has x in it, and we can solve that. So we get x equals 2. Okay, we get x equals 2. Now, we're not done yet with this problem. We have to figure out what y is. You can take this 2 and go back and plug it into either one of these equations. Doesn't matter which one. Looks like the second one will be easier. Now watch this. 2, because x is now 2, 2 plus y equals 1. Well, move the 2 over, and you get y equals negative 1. So my answer is 2 comma negative 1. That is the point where these two lines would intersect if you had graphed it. But you could find this out without graphing at all. Okay? That's how you do it. It doesn't matter which equation you plug this first answer into. Doesn't matter. All right? You guys want to try one? So here. 3x minus 4y equals 7. 2x minus y equals 3. Okay. So I'm not going to mess with the x's here. I'm going to mess with the y's again. Notice how this is negative 4y. This is negative y. I need to get this to positive 4y. So if I have to change the sign of it, so I'm going to multiply this by negative 4. And remember, you have to multiply everything by negative 4. So that's negative 8x plus, plus 4y equals negative 12. The top one didn't change at all. So I'm just bringing that over. But notice how I have these opposite pair of variables now. That's gone. 3x and negative 8x is negative 5x. Negative 12 and 7 is negative 5. And you get x equals positive 1. Okay. Now remember, I'm not done yet. I gotta figure it out, right? Positive 1. I'm gonna plug into the second equation. 2 times 1. I'm gonna plug the 1 for x is 2. Move the 2 over. Negative y equals 1, but don't forget to divide by negative. So we get 1. And again, if you wanted to check it, you could plug that point into both of the original equations, and it'll work in both. That's where those lines would cross. Okay. All right. Here's another one. This one's actually going to be a little bit easier. 2x minus 6y equals negative 10. 4x plus 6y equals positive 2. Now, I hope you realize why this is easier, because if you look at the y's, you will notice that the y's are already opposite. So we don't have to make that adjustment that we did earlier. We can just add these equations together right away, and these y's go away. So we get 6x equals, I'm sorry, I wrote down the equation wrong. This second equation should have been negative 4x, okay? So 2x and negative 4x is negative 2x, and this is going to be negative 8. Divide by negative 2, and you get x equals 4. I'm going to go into the first equation this time. So 2 times 4, this becomes 8. Minus 6y equals negative 10. Move that over. Negative 6y equals negative 18. And you get y equals positive 3. So my answer is 4, 3. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this. It's all about creating the opposite pair of variables. Okay, opposite pair of variables. Now this next one's going to be a little bit tougher, so you definitely got to be paying attention here. But once you get through this, that's really it. The only thing that makes it harder is when we do word problems. All right. Notice how there is no easy adjustment to make here. You have to do what we call a double adjustment. You see, I can't multiply this top by a nice integer value to get this negative, to get a positive 3x. You see, you always want to multiply by integers. Makes it easier. So what you have to do is you have to ask yourself, what's the smallest number that 2 and 3 divide into? And I hope that you say divide into evenly. I hope you say 6. So we want to get this up. If I multiply this top one by, let's match up the x's, by 3, that's going to be negative 6x plus 9y equals negative 33. If I want to get this to 6, remember, I want to get this to actually to positive 6. That way it would be opposite of this. So I have to multiply by negative 2. So that would give me negative 6x. Now negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. and you get negative 52. So we have, sorry, negative times, I'm making some mistakes here. Negative times a negative is positive, so that should be positive 6x. So you see, now we have this opposite pair, so these x's go away. See, in the first 2 or 3 problems, we got rid of the y's first. Now we got rid of the x's. That's okay, doesn't matter. Add this together, you get 17y, and this would be negative 85. Divide by 17, and you get y equals negative 5. Now again, like before, we're not done yet. We have to plug in. I'm going to use the first equation, but remember, we are now plugging in for y. So that becomes 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So we're going to add 15, and that becomes 4. And then we divide, when we're dividing by negative 2, we get negative 2. So I get my answer of, remember, always write the x one first, negative 2, negative 5. So we had to make a double adjustment there, okay? A double adjustment. All right. And I'll do one more. 2x plus 4y equals negative 8. 5x plus 6y equals negative 8 as well. So I could either put these up to 10 or put these up to 12. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to stick with the smaller. So I'm going to multiply this top one by 5. That would give me 10x. I'm going to multiply this one by negative 2. So I'm just going to write them down here. Here's the top one multiplied by 5. Here's the bottom one multiplied by negative 2. These go away. This becomes 8y. And this is going to be negative 24. And I get y equals negative 3. Again, I'm going to go into that top equation. 2x plus 4 times negative 3 equals negative 8. Now you add that 12. We get 2x equals 4. So when you divide, you get x equals 2. So my answer is 2, negative 3. So that is your lesson on elimination. All about finding the opposite pair.